Welcome to Coffee With. I'm not your normal host. Robin had some other things to do. Of course, we're supposed to be taking a break, but today is not your normal edition of Coffee With. Tomorrow is Election Day. It is as the Republican and Democratic primaries tomorrow. I encourage every single one of you to get out and vote, and I'm sure the man next to me, our guest of honor today, encourages you to get out and vote, and he wants you to vote for him. David Sharp is running for the Republican nomination for Circuit Clerk here in town. But beyond that, David and I have known each other for a number of years, and we both feel passionately about people being involved in the political process, people getting out and making their voice heard by casting their ballot. But we're going to kind of digress a little bit now. David, most people in town know that. Well, I guess the first time I met you, I was like, "Oh, that's Harry's kid." Mm-hmm. Did you get a lot of that when you were growing up?
A lot of times, but mostly through my mom. I get both of them really, but a lot of people knew my mom as well. Depending on where I was in the community, would depend on.
If you were doing something bad, you were Harry's kid.
Well, if I was closer to downtown, I was more, everybody knew me as Harry Sharp's son. If I was involved with a school of some sort, somebody that knew, it was my mom.
What'd your mom do?
She is a guidance counselor for Vicksburg Intermediate.
Oh, wow. Awesome. So that's what got you into teaching.
Pretty much, she's encouraged me to teach, and I love working with the youth, so it kind of works out that way.
All right, so when you chose, and it just pains me to admit that you're a graduate of Ole Miss, though I do respect the fact that you majored in criminal justice. Mm-hmm. And that's something I wanted to ask you is, what took you into the want to major in criminal justice?
Well, I've always wanted to be able to serve people, serve, protect. There are a lot of things that may have been some of the things that happened to me as a child that I just wanted to be able to get out there and serve people. So criminal justice is one of those things that I really I love law. I've always enjoyed learning, about different laws. And so that's just a field that I really wanted to get into and check out.
Cool. So after graduating from Ole Miss, you did not immediately come back to Vicksburg, did you?
Correct. I did.
You went to Deer Forge, Tennessee?
Deer Lodge.
Deer Lodge,
right. And I went to Deer Lodge. I did come back for a little bit. I tried to get a policing job, and of course at that time they were full or the door shut on me. And I guess the Lord took me to Tennessee to kind of just see something. And while I was up there, I worked with an at-risk youth program to really help mentor these students that needed help. And the whole time I was there, I started thinking, this is great, but I really need to help out my community. I want to go back and do something in my community. And that's ultimately why I decided to come back to Vicksburg.
Now, coming back to Vicksburg, did you come back with the mission that you were going to work with youth, or?
Well, I came back. I was sort of offered a job if I took it to be a permanent sub for Vicksburg Intermediate with the same school my mom worked. And I really wasn't sure if that's kind of what I wanted to do right off the bat. But I started thinking about it and praying about it, and everything kind of worked out well. And I finally said, you know what, I'll do it. I'll do it. And so I told my bosses up there that I'm coming back to Vicksburg to do the permanent sub job. And I enjoyed it a lot. I really started liking teaching. And before I knew it, by the end of the year, I had a job for that fall.
Oh, wow. Now, when you first started in Vicksburg Warren full-time, you were working with at-risk youth?
Right, correct. I was at Grove Street Alternative School. And there's some things that in the private sector where I was compared to the public sector that are completely different. So it took a little adjusting, but it worked out. It worked itself out.
What coming from both sides of that fence, and this is something that we at Vicksburg Daily News have talked about a lot, is how do we help our youth? Coming from both sides of that fence, private sector, public sector, what can the public sector do to help the privates, or the private sector do to help the public sector in achieving goals more rapidly? I mean, what might you think that?
Well, it's very everything's there as far as like the same program type setup. I mean, everything's pretty much the same. The difference is in the private sector, or where I was, you have the teacher or the counselor, which was what I was, the counselor teacher. We had the full control to do what we had to do to make things comply, you know. And when you get into the public schools, you know, you cannot necessarily put a hands on a child. Whereas up there, if they were fighting or if they were doing something and you had to redirect or things like that, you could literally kind of let them know. And there's, you know, another thing is like just smaller groups. I would think actually might work out if you can just narrow down some of the students to a smaller number on a better ratio from teacher to student. That might work out a lot as well. That's what we had in Tennessee. We had 2 chiefs for every 12 individuals, so about 1 to 6, you know, 1 chief to every 6 clients.
Not okay. Moving forward, you kept on teaching in Vicksburg Warren, but you've kind of stepped away from that now. Now, the last place you were at Beechwood.
I was at Beechwood. Great school, very, very, very supporting people. Learned a lot from the students, and I learned a lot from the faculty. Worked under Chris Parrott, excellent principal. I was excited about going back. However, at home we have some medical problems at home that I want to try to implement or help out, so I can my father, so we can he doesn't have too big of a load, stress load.
Now, so what are you doing right now? Like,
well, right now I'm the general manager for the Duff Green Mansion, the Green Lawn Gardens Cemetery, and I also help out my mom's store, the You Choose upscale furniture consignment. Not to mention that I've been told that I need to. I'm also in charge of all the downtown buildings that we have under our name.
So that's
quite a big load.
That's a huge load, dude. I can see why you had to step away from the teaching gig for a little bit.
Right.
Okay, you've piled all that stuff on your plate, but you're on the Riverfest board.
Correct.
And you're currently on the Storehouse Community Food Pantry board. Or did you get elected like chairman of the board or president of the board or something like that? What happened?
Well, actually, you know, I've been with the Storehouse Community Food Pantry since I was about, I want to say since it started. I can't remember which year that was, but I remember, and I'll go every afternoon with my mom. It was kind of, at first it was just there to help my mom. And then I started really seeing the benefit of helping others, and before I knew it, you know, I'm 28 and I've been doing it for, you know, since it started. So it's probably about 11 years. And they, unbeknownst to me, one day just said, "We want to make you put you on the board." And so naturally, I got voted in on an absence. So, but I'm excited about the title, and I want to do whatever I can to help out that.
What's for people who don't know, what's the mission of the Storehouse Community Food Pantry?
Well, the Storehouse Community Food Pantry is basically to offer emergency assistance for anybody and everybody who might need it. The requirements are that you have a valid driver's license or ID and a Social Security card, and we will offer assistance if you have it, if you need it, excuse me. And the biggest thing is we only give you 3 times within a year, and the year will start the first day you come. So you can't say, you know, come one week and say, oh, okay, I want to come, you know, next week, or whatever. They only give you 3 times, and every time you come, you have to have a 30-day grace period between each time you come, and that kind of is because we're really just for emergencies. If we kept giving and giving and giving, then we wouldn't be able to help others that really, really need us help as well.
Yeah. Now, doing that, I'm sure, takes up a great deal of time. Then there comes Riverfest.
Right.
Okay, as a board member of Riverfest, and I'm going to go ahead and bust you out here in front of all of our viewers. Every time, and for those of you who saw the amount of coverage, we were down there for a lot of time. But every single time that I saw you, you were sitting on a golf cart watching an act, and you would say, "I'm waiting on to pick up," and I'm running, and you were like you said you were an errand boy, but every time I saw you, you were just kind of sitting there.
Well, for the actual event, I was kind of like the errand boy, but I was more or less. It's when somebody called me, I had to go get something. Like I was in charge of making sure all the vendors had what they needed, whether it be ice, anything that they may need extra. That was my responsibility to get it to them, and a lot of times they already had things, but if they didn't, especially ice, we sold ice. That was my responsibility to go get the ice and take it to them and sell it to them.
That's one thing I can give you, because one time I actually did see you driving, and there was a ton of ice in the back. I didn't know a golf cart could carry that much ice. So, okay, I'm prone to believe it. What else, as a board member of Riverfest, what is a board member? What are y'all responsible for?
As a board member, we are responsible for trying to find sponsorships to help and promote the entertainment for the downtown or for Vicksburg. And a lot of what we're trying to do with Riverfest is just bring in revenue for the downtown and the community as a whole. To just kind of help stimulate a little bit in the spring, after that long winter, when tourism's down and things of that nature. And we're just trying to get people to come in and experience Vicksburg from all over the area. There's some people that may have never come. Like last year we had, I think I heard somebody came all the way from Massachusetts to come see our headliner last year.
Yeah. There were actually 4 people in the front row, and I told them that they need to get with Katrina to talk. There were actually 4 people in the front row, 2 guys, 2 girls, that were from Toronto.
Oh wow!
That were there. They were visiting through on spring break or something like that, and they actually heard that Brantley Gilbert was going to be here for Riverfest, and they wanted to go see Brantley. Wow. So yeah, we had some people from Toronto, which was really awesome. Even though it was a side trip for them, but that's a lot of times it works out that way.
Right.
Where this may be a side trip for the weekend,
And it just promotes. Like you can advertise and you can throw out flyers and you can, give out deals and discounts or whatever to get people to come to Vicksburg. But the best advertisement is word of mouth. And so if you can get people to come experience it through maybe a headliner we had or through a festival we might have, then naturally they'll spread the word, and here they come, and hopefully more people will come and experience what we have to offer in this community.
That's really great. Okay, now, down the reason why I asked you to come in here today, we're going to talk a little politics. One, let's go ahead once again. David is running for the Republican nomination for Circuit Clerk. Go ahead and give your pitch out there so we can go ahead and get that out the way.
Well, I'm just a big man for a big job. I believe in purging the polls and getting the voter registry correct so we can make this community very successful.
Okay. Let's talk. Let's just strip all the political everything away, because you and I have a lot of the same political views, and I think that's because we come from nearly the same age group. I've got 10 or 12 years on you. But we've got a lot of the same political views. But irregardless, Republican, Democrat, Independent, all that matters is one thing. And that's everybody's got to cast their vote.
Right. We definitely need people to get out there and vote. Whether you're, just now turning 18, or you've been 18, registered enough in time to vote, or all the way up into you're 120, 130. We need you to go out and vote, primarily because if we're not exercising our rights, then what's the purpose of even having rights as a citizen of the United States? I believe it was Albert Einstein that said insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting something different.
And that's kind of result.
Right, and that's kind of like what we're seeing. You know, we keep allowing certain people to stay in power.
I've always said it this way, and for those of you who are offended, maybe it's a little too true. Why do we keep electing morons? Because there's so many of them, they keep electing each other.
Right.
If you vote for the same guy just because, well, and a new poll came out, and we're in the middle of this whole debt debacle and all of this stuff, and this poll comes out, and it says 95% of all Americans are give an unfavorable opinion to the job of Congress. But of that 95% who give an unfavorable opinion to the job, the overall Congress, 90% of them say, "I like my congressman."
Right. Right.
That's the mentality that we get.
Ultimately, and you know, and if you just allow, if you go out and vote and maybe try to give it, you know, not necessarily, I mean, just give somebody else a chance, or you know, maybe thin out the blood a little bit. I guess put some new blood in there. You know, you might expect to see something different. You know.
Now, this past November, we got an overwhelming, from as the United States as a whole, got an overwhelming wake-up call from especially the groups the likes of the Tea Party. You got a lot of freshman first-term congressmen elected this past November because people were fed up with the same old, same old. I foresee that happening, and
well, ultimately, if we can't, I hate to say this, but if we don't see something as a country as a whole, I mean, we're in trouble, you know, ideally, and if we can't determine or get people to start thinking and using the brains that the Lord gave us, you know, we could be in a little trouble. And that's why voting is so important, to get out there and do your research and see who the best person is, and get out there and vote and cast it, because you know, especially in local elections, it counts.
Oh yeah,
it counts. And then everything, sometimes it's not necessarily starting from the top. We already see what's happening from the top. Maybe we need to start working at the bottom and trying to push it to the top. And
maybe that's the way it's got to work. And I'll tell you how people here in Warren County will probably remember. There's a supervisor who got into office, and this may have been a couple of elections ago. There were 17 votes that separated him and his opponent at the end of it all. And they had to recount the election because it was so close.
I remember hearing about that.
But there were 17 votes that were cast. And for those people who say my vote doesn't count, I'm sorry.
It counts. It counts a great deal. And, you know, and that's why I encourage, whether you're 18 or, you know, 105, if you still can vote and you want to vote, you need to vote.
My mom took me to the polling place when I was a kid. She took me to show me how important that it was to vote. And, you know, at that point in time, I don't know if the election law allows it now. At that point in time, you know, I was 8, 9, 10 years old, whatever it was. They actually let me go into the booth with her. And she was telling me about each of the candidates, and she was whispering to me so she didn't get hurt.
Right.
That made a huge impact on me. Did your mom or dad ever do that with you?
Well, they're always, I remember in my household, you know, in the afternoon, I'd get back from school and I'd hear, "Did you vote?" "No." "Did you vote?" "Yeah, I voted," you know, or something like that. And because both of them were asking, you know, making sure. And that's the thing that I always heard. My mom would look at dad, or dad look at mom. "Did you vote?" "I voted." "Did you vote?" You know, and so that's kind of one of those things that sticks with me. You know, that's why I've tried to make a point to vote in every election. However, when I was living in Tennessee, I kind of missed that opportunity.
All right. For those people who haven't registered to vote already, deadline of course is passed for this primary
but you can
election.
Still get out there for the general election and get your name, get registered, and and do your research and find out who you would like to support for the general.
Cool. David, I appreciate it,
Thank
my
you.
brother.
Yes, sir.
Good luck in the election tomorrow.
I appreciate it.
And we'll see you again real soon. Hopefully as still as candidate.
That's right. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Appreciate it, brother.
Promotional consideration provided by